What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Lifting in Heels podcast. I'm Rachel and I'm here with my co host, Heather. And today we're going to talk about meal plans versus macros. This is kind of like, I would say it's more of a bigger topic in the competing world and even in like the just general lifestyle fitness world. Um, Everyone's always, wondering, should I have a meal plan? Should I have macros? And I don't think there's necessarily a right or a wrong answer. And we'll kind of dive into this more as the episode goes on. So Heather, I kind of know like what your opinion is on this already.
Yes.
You want to go ahead and explain your opinion on it?
Yeah. So I have I don't want to totally bash one side because I want to explain before I say I do not, well, I'll just jump right in. I don't care. So I am not a fan of macros for a few different reasons, but I'm not saying there's always a time and place for things. So I don't want to say completely. However, I think macros should be used with caution, especially with women. And here's why. Because, well, let me also back up. So there's a couple different ways to do macros. If you can do macros where if it fits your macros thing that came out a couple years ago, where you can, you got your number of carbs that you had to hit for the day, you got your number of fat, and protein, and then it was like half at it, whatever food you want to do in that for that macro. So like carbs, you can pick sweet potatoes or Skittles. That drives me insane, and it does not work. And it's to me, it's the stupidest thing that has ever come out of the fitness industry. And now with that said, you can totally take with protein, you can interchange like cod, shrimp, tuna, 100% you can interchange stuff. And that I agree with. But when you go to the extremes, which a lot of I don't want to say a lot, some trainers were jumping on that bandwagon to try to sell their training programs. You can eat cookies and ice cream on our plans. And that is not the case. And what happens is, this is where not only do I not like the if it fits your macros for that, but I especially do not like it because you start to see this obsession with women counting stuff. So a carb, it is not as long as something's a carb, you can fit it in. That's not how it works. There's all different levels of carbohydrates, different types, slow digesting, fast digesting. I don't even want to go into that, but it's more than just, as long as it says carb on a label, you can interchange it.
All carbs are not created equal.
Not at all.
Let's be honest.
Not at all.
Yes.
Okay. I get so passionate about this because it drove me nuts for years seeing a lot of these trainers push this because it was complete bullshit. And so with that, and then on top of it, if you give women, everyone loves numbers. So women were obsessed with MyFitnessPal, and they couldn't go out, they couldn't do anything because unless they were able to put their food in this FitnessPal. And you started to see this really, really bad obsession.
Which is so contradictory because the whole point of this, if it fits your macros thing, was so people could live their lives and still go out and do things and be able to track everything. But it totally went just haywire. I think it was good in the beginning, when people, who was it that came out with it? The first person, I want to say it was oh, what's his name? I can't think of his name right now, but he's worked with Adam Atkinson and stuff like that. And he's the first person to introduce it, but he has even talked about it on his YouTube channel where, originally he introduced that to swap out veggies or to swap out proteins, like you had mentioned, and people just ran with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel probably I would say 5-ish years ago is when people really started to just go haywire with it. You'd see people oh, I'm fitting in Pop-Tarts. Oh, I'm, having a whole pint of Halo Top because I have, a bunch of macros left at the end of the day. And it's like,
Yes.
here's my thing. Will it work to lose weight? Absolutely, because it's calories in, calories out for losing weight. Point blank, period. But with that being said, there's also a bunch of other things. When you're talking about just losing numbers on the scale, yes, it will work. But when your body comp is taken into play, your muscle mass, your fat mass, your body water, your inflammation, all that stuff, it's going to have a negative effect on that. When there is no nutrient density to any of the foods that you're eating, your body lacks that, and your body is craving nutrients, not just calories. It needs certain micronutrients in order to work properly for your digestion, for muscle gain, for fat loss, for all of it. And in order for that to all kind of flow, you can't just be eating Pop-Tarts and, fucking Halo Top all the time.
Oh my God.
I remember I think it was my first or second, no, it was my first North Coast that I did. And I was following a girl that I knew I was going to be competing against. And at the time, she was like a big IIFYM girl. And I remember it was probably like 3-4 weeks out. She was like, oh, I have a bunch of macros left, so I'm eating this whole pint of Halo Top. Posted it on her story. I'm looking at this, and mind you, I was on like chicken and fish and broccoli and like nothing fun, of course. And I'm like, I sent it to Kathy at the time, and I was like, what the fuck is this? You can do this? And she's like, no, that does not work for what you're trying to do. And I'm like, okay. But I think people just they take a little bit of something, and then they try and just stretch it out as much as they possibly can. And
for sure,
the thing with it is I did not used to be like a huge believer in health and bodybuilding. And the reason I say that is because I looked at it as such an extreme sport, and everything that you're doing is not necessarily healthy, which depending on how you prep and everything, you can prep in a healthy way. You absolutely can. You can absolutely have a healthy off season and not gain 70 pounds and have to lose that, in 5 months, like, some people we know. But however, sprinkle the salt in there. However,
and some of these people that we're talking about follow the if it fits your macros with this. But you know what? What's funny is a lot of them, I just want to say this, since you brought them up, they have kind of seen the light and realized like, oh my God, since I'm getting older, because listen, if you're 22, you can get away with a lot more stuff than you can get away with when you're like 28, 29, 30. Oh my gosh, maybe shoving Pop-Tarts isn't the best.
I think we're talking about two different people, though. We'll have to have a little chat about that, because I know who you're talking about. That's not who I was talking about. But yeah, go ahead. If Cash is listening, he'll know who I'm talking about. But point being is, in order to have longevity in anything with health, fitness, relation, you have to prioritize your health. And that includes digestion, that includes your micronutrients, that includes pretty much anything that like affects your normal day-to-day life, as well as your blood panels. Like if you were to get your blood work drawn, that is all taken into account, or at least it should be. And I think that people tend to forget that in prep, and they forget that, if you can prep and you can drop a ton of weight in a short amount of time, but what's the after effect going to look like in that? Because let's be honest, if you're eating, like we said, candy, Pop-Tarts, like a bunch of just bullshit, you can lose weight. Yeah, you can get lean, but what's the after effect of that? I've seen.
Oh, go ahead. I think you're going to say exactly what I was going to say. Go ahead.
I've seen so many people rebound because of this. And granted, a rebound can happen no matter what. I've had a rebound where I had too restrictive of a prep, and then I ate everything in sight for 3 weeks, and I gained 30 pounds in 3 weeks. However, I think insulin's like a big thing too. And when you're eating a ton of sugar like that, your insulin is always through the roof.
Yeah.
And I think there are some advocates of, being concerned about those things. And then there are people who are like, it doesn't matter. It's calories in, calories out. And I think the fitness industry kind of has to come to an understanding and that there is a balance. Like you can switch out your foods. Absolutely. You can have a treat every once in a while if you're not like prepping or whatever. Absolutely. But like to try and fit those things in every day, it almost causes like an obsession to where if you don't fit those things in, you're like panicking, like, oh, I don't get my treat for the day, but I deserve my treat for the day. And people become like obsessed with numbers, like you said. Women, especially. I think I've seen both sides of it where men are super obsessed with it as well. And believe me, it is a very big mental barrier to have to get over, because you have to look at it like, okay, after you're done competing, how are you going to live your life?
Yes. That's
how
the
are
biggest
you
thing.
going to be able to navigate your daily nutrition? How are you going to be able to navigate, if you go on vacation? Is it a free for all where you have everything that you can get your hands on, then you come back and you wonder why you gained 15 pounds over the week? Or do you know in your head that you can make the correct choices to where, okay, you may only gain 1 or 2 pounds in the week? And I think that's where macros, I shouldn't say counting macros, because counting macros is a tool. It is another way to track basically what you're intaking, how you can change things around, those kinds of things. If it fits your macros is a whole different ball game. And I mean, everyone was obsessed with it. Like I remember they had like a whole like company or like a whole clothing brand of if it fits your macros. It was like IFYM, and they had like the NASA logo, and then they had like cupcake t-shirts and donut bags and like all this kind of shit. And everyone was like, yes, we can eat all this stuff. And it's like, this can't be right. And I think people they've been starting to come around to the fact that it's not always if it fits your macros. And to me, it's funny because I think over the years, as the quality of competitors has gotten significantly better, I mean, even just 5 years ago, if you look at Miss Bikini Olympia 5 years ago and Miss Bikini Olympia this year, it's night and day. I mean, they're bigger, they're leaner, they're harder. It's like, it's a whole different caliber of an athlete. But looking back at 5 years ago to competitors now, I think you can tell now who does the more like if it fits your macros diets versus who follows a meal plan or who follows like a cleaner macro plan, if you get what I'm saying. Because when you think about it, you don't see top level competitors doing if you're fit.
Nobody
macros. Not a single one.
Not one. And you know what's funny is because like if it fits your macro started to come out like I think my second or third show. And I was like, Dad, oh my God, look at this. He's like, Heather, that's not real. And I was like, let's just try it. He let me go 2 weeks trying it. And I was getting like no results. He's like, are you done with this shit? Like, can we move on? Like,
can we move on, please? Yeah, I could totally
he's like,
see
I'm done with this. And he's like, are you ready to get like serious? And what's funny is I started to notice too, especially with, and it was very popular with the bikini girls. You never saw one physique woman do if it fits your macros. No. At least I couldn't find one. And I take those competitors and I compare them to my dad, who competed up until he was 65 years old. And like he started like, so 30 some years in the sport and on a very competitive level. And he is pro meal plan. And you have these people over here that might last. I mean, I'm sure you saw it all the time. These girls that were very big advocates of the if it fits your macros got 2 show years, and then their bodies went and
They went
completely
haywire.
that like they wouldn't respond. They wouldn't, and then they were in like 2 years of like trying to get their bodies back on track. And it's like you compare the two, and it's like you see this longevity. Here, my dad still looks like he could like walk on stage like anytime he wanted to. And he was able to always sustain it, never had ups and downs. And then I see these girls who, even in those 2 short years, they had crazy ups and downs. And then all of a sudden they just couldn't get their bodies back on track. And it was really sad, but it's like you have these two like big, very like big comparisons and very like big contrasts. And I'm like, it's a no-brainer on which way to go. No, and don't get me wrong, meal plans, you can get obsessive as well, but you just see so much damage. And I wanted if it fits your macros to work so bad. So
I
bad.
mean,
I tried
everyone
it.
does.
Oh my
Everyone
God.
does. Who doesn't want to eat like fun stuff in their meal plan constantly? But I mean, being realistic,
Can't.
the girls that did if it fits your macros, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, like we said earlier, the caliber has changed. Before, I feel like it was more of they wanted like a skinny, like girl next door who had like a cute, like bikini body. And that was really it.
Mhm.
Now it's a whole
Yep.
different ball game. They want big shoulders. They want a
Mhm.
tight waist. They want glutes that just they're high, they're tight, they project, they want it all with the tie-ins.
Mhm.
They want that shape. And you can't achieve that without nutrition, without good nutrition. You can't achieve
Mhm.
that with Pop Tarts and candy and like cheese and all. I mean,
Oh,
all
and like
kinds
you
of shit.
said,
I remember this girl used to post too on her story how she would like make like a Taco Bell what's it called? A crunch wrap. She would
uh-huh.
make like a crunch wrap in
Are you
prep.
like that
Like her
blows my
own
mind.
home version, like, "Oh, I'll do 2% cheese here and light sour cream here." And it's like all this shit is not like going to fuel you.
No.
It's not going to fuel you for training. It's not going to help you recover. And like I said multiple times already, for the caliber now, you can't do it like that.
Mm-mm.
You can't. If you want to make any leeway in this sport anyways, like if you're just doing it for a bucket list thing, cool. But
Yeah.
you're not if you want to get somewhere, you're not going to be able to do the if it fits your macros. And I think
No.
it becomes it just becomes a mind game. And I think it can
Mm.
be very, very mentally damaging. But I will say, I'll play devil's advocate here. I think meal plans also can be not so good either. I think you have to have the right person. You have to be,
Yeah.
I mean, we've said this so many times on the podcast, but like in order to compete, you have to be very mentally durable.
Mhm.
You have to be very, very, very resilient. And you can't let a lot of things bother you. And you can't, you know, overanalyze everything as much as you want to. You can't.
Mhm.
However, I do feel like, especially for first time competitors, I think that it's very important that you have a coach that explains to you why you're doing what you're doing.
Yes.
Coaches, if you are listening, please, 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 please do not think that the athlete is questioning you or your knowledge
Mhm.
or your experience or anything like that. If someone asks you something, most of the time it's because they just want to know why they're doing what they're doing. And quite frankly, I think everyone should know why they're doing what they're doing because after prep
100%.
time, when it comes to off season, like yeah, you may give them another meal plan in their off season, but let's be real, people in off season, they're more likely to fall and hinder off
Mm.
that plan. It is what it is. Like that's your time to enjoy your life. That's your time to like get everything out of the way, and not saying that like you shouldn't follow your plan because you absolutely should. However, most people cannot hit
No.
that off season plan to a T. So instead of them wondering, "Oh, well, I'm going to go out to eat tonight. None of it's on my meal plan,
Mhm.
so I'm just gonna order whatever the fuck I want.
Yes.
And you can't you really need to know the ins and outs of nutrition, I think, in order to really have a successful journey, whether it's competing, whether it's lifestyle, whether you're
Mhm.
trying to lose weight, gain muscle. You really need to do the research yourself, and you really need to understand why you're doing what you're doing in order to set up a successful journey, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I think the education behind it is like the make or break thing because what happens is like in off season, okay, let's just say on your meal plan there's like chicken and broccoli. Well, if you go to a restaurant like you said and like there's no like chicken broccoli or you're just like you don't want to just like get like plain chicken breast or broccoli, you're like, but you would have gotten a steak and asparagus. But if you don't understand that, I mean, when you compete, those aren't interchangeable, but on a lifestyle thing, those are totally
Mhm.
interchangeable, especially for one, like one night. And
Yeah.
so instead of approaching it like I'm just going to order anything I want because this is going to be a freebie, or going in and saying, you know what, I'm going to actually follow my meal plan. I'm going to um get a steak and asparagus for like because if you go to like a really good steakhouse, like that's obviously what you want. And you thought that's like you leave that restaurant thinking like I stayed on my meal plan, that was a success, as opposed to, oh shit. I just because I mean, no matter how much you're like, oh, F the meal plan, I'm just gonna eat whatever I want, you still have that guilt after because you're like, that was a failure. I shouldn't have done that. And so you leave the restaurant going like, ugh, even if you still got the steak, it's how you approach it. Like to me, like the best way to approach somebody, like when you're trying to like teach them or and get them to lose weight, is to set them up for successes, not set them up for failures. And like it's it's the educating them, I think that is what like makes that possible. And again, like if if you're going to be in like even in prep or lifestyle, educating them to where like let's just say on your meal plan again with chicken and broccoli, if you're like one day you're going to wake up and go, shit, I have no chicken in my fridge, what do I do? If you have cod, make cod and you have no stress. It's an interchangeable thing and you move on. Whereas if you're not educating them, they panic. They can tend to like just go, you know what, this will be my free day, which
Mhm.
leads all like eating like shit the rest of the day. Not it never usually just stops with one meal for the day. Um, and you get them all stressed out for when if you would have just took the time, like the 5 seconds, and been like, hey, by the way, if you ever run into a bind, this can be interchanged. So you understand because it's a low fat protein. It that 5 seconds goes like such a long way.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I agree, and I think coaching is definitely getting better. Now, granted, there are some god
Hmm.
awful coaches out there still, but there's also some great ones, and I think the industry is getting more saturated with good coaches who actually like care about their clients.
Hmm.
And I think that being a good coach at that point, I mean, you have to want to see your clients succeed in all aspects, not just
Hmm.
weight loss or not just muscle gain. Like I always looked at it. So when I was like personal training full time, I always looked at my clients like I don't want them to have to rely on me in a
Hmm.
year.
Yes.
I want to be able to teach them what they need to do in the gym, how they need to eat, as far as not a full like meal plan, but just like kind of like guidelines of, okay, you want higher protein, you know, you want, X amount of carbs, X amount of fats, and whatever else that may be. But if they still need me to work out in
Hmm.
a year or two, I didn't do my job.
I agree.
If they have no idea like what to do when they go in a gym without me, I didn't do my job. And coaching is kind of like the same thing. Coaching is the
Hmm.
exact same thing. Granted, most of the time people hire a coach because they want accountability, which is
Yeah.
great. I think everyone should have that. I think everyone should have someone that's holding them accountable at least on a weekly basis at that point. However, I also think that coaches themselves need to really just look at the person, like, as a person. They're not just a number. They're not just,
Mhm.
They're following this meal plan, they're doing this workout, X results. It doesn't need to necessarily be a science project, but I feel like they need to look at that person as a person,
Mhm.
you know? And we've talked about this before, but I think that's like what the difference is between a good coach and a bad coach. And that's why I didn't have a coach for a long time, was because I didn't I didn't trust anyone enough
Mhm.
to really like just care about me like overall as a person, but then also care about me as an athlete and really look at things into detail, because I knew how detailed I was and
Mhm.
how I kept track of everything. And that's kind of where like I'm so grateful for Cash, because I mean, he literally checks on me in like every single aspect of my life.
And
And
that's so important. Like losing weight, whether it's for prep or not, there's so much, it doesn't just come down to food and workouts. It comes down to like every part of your life. Like it's so if you're just checking in with a coach and all they care about is your diet and your workout, like that should be a huge red flag. And I
Mhm.
just want to put this out there. Finding like a good coach and or trying to figure out like who's a good coach and who's a bad coach can be very difficult, especially in a very saturated industry. One thing that I have noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, the ones with the biggest Instagram followers are usually the worst ones. Like it literally goes, it's like I don't know if I've seen now, granted, don't get me like John Meadows is a great exception of that. Like, rest in peace. We miss him dearly. Like he was a fantastic, fantastic coach that had an insane following on YouTube, Instagram, everything. But it took years and years and years of him being around in the industry for him to build that. So I mean more so like ones that have just maybe been around for a few years and all of a sudden have a huge thing. That means that they're spending more time in their marketing plan than they are on their clients. And I just realized that like throughout, I mean, I've been in this industry 36 years, I guess, like since I was a baby. And I will say the best ones are the ones that are low key, that they don't want to be at the forefront. They don't care. They don't want to, like obviously you're going to take pictures with your clients, but they're not worried about Instagram photos. And they really care. They're kind of behind the scenes in the background. And all they care about is like, just, how do their clients do? They care about them as an individual, not, like getting their name out there. And I just think that that's something like it's very easy to get like swayed by, oh my God, they must be so great. They have all these followers. Usually you end up just being a number and they don't care about you. They care about their client average.
I definitely agree. I think there are some outliers to that, like
Hmm.
comes to mind like Kimoto. He
Yes.
has a ton of Instagram followers, but he's a phenomenal coach. However, I agree with that 100%. And it's funny you say that, because I remember in my actual like interview with Cash, one of the things he said, which kind of like, I don't know, it made me like feel at ease almost, was, you know, he doesn't really give a shit about Instagram. He doesn't care about how many followers he has, like trying to get his name out there. Like, and he said that, your results are going to get you clients. You should not
Mhm.
have to constantly be like baiting clients to come in on social. And that right there was like a just eye opener to me. Like, okay, like he really just does care about the athletes and like loves coaching. It's not about like the money. It's not about, the followers. It's not about any of that shit. And I think people really need to look at that, because if you see
Mhm.
someone, granted, someone could be a great coach and they could blow up quick, but
Yes.
but most of the time
Hmm.
most of the time, you do end up becoming a number. I've seen it so many times. One of my best friends that happened to. Um, and I remember just like my heart broke for her because she loved the sport. She loved the sport, and she ended up becoming a number. She felt like she had to like do something to like keep standing out to her coach. And I mean, she won her first show at her class, and then she went and got an overall at a different show. So it's like she was good.
Yeah.
She was good. And she wanted to go to nationals, and her coach was like, I don't think you're ready yet. But, Sally Sue over here, who looks like shit, and she also, she didn't even get an overall. He's taken her to nationals. So, and she always felt like she had to like compete with her teammates. And that's not okay. That is
No.
not okay. If you feel like just another number and you feel like you have to do something extra to stand out to your coach, you
Yeah.
got the wrong coach, because
Mhm.
let me tell you, if you're a good athlete and you're following everything to a T, that coach will appreciate you and that coach will acknowledge you.
Mhm.
You do not need to go above and beyond for a coach to notice you. And if you do,
No.
run,
E-
run.
Exactly. Like you hire a coach to help you. Like they're your assistant to help you lose weight. You don't pay them and then like you owe them stuff. You know what I mean? Like you are like hiring for their services. And I think that can sometime like we've seen some coaches where it's like you said, it's like you have to do this or else like I just don't think you're good at, like good. And it's like, what? Are you out of your
Yeah.
mind? Like in I don't I can go on for about bad coaching for a long
I
time.
was
So
gonna say, I feel
I
like
won't
we're
even
getting
dive
off
into that.
topic at this
Yeah, I won't
point.
even dive into
That
this.
could be a whole other
Yes.
episode, to be honest. But I think we're gonna wrap it up for today, though, just because I think we got our points across about meal plans versus macros, what we think is good, what's not good, kind of how to navigate that. I think it was a really good topic, and I think it's important because for people that still are just starting in the industry and they're wanting to lose weight, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. And I think for people to understand that when it comes down to it, it's what works for you within
Mhm.
reason. Don't try to fit in a bunch of shit. If a meal plan makes you too neurotic, do macros. But most likely, let's be honest, counting macros probably going to make you just as neurotic.
Yeah.
So you
Exactly.
kind of have to find your mental fortitude. Make sure you have that in place before you do anything somewhat extreme as far as
Mhm.
competing goes. So with that being said,
Yes.
guys, I think we're going to sign off for today. Have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you guys.